What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and welcome back to the finals of the recent Wilmington, North Carolina League Cup that we got to go attend. So here on the left, we're going to have Christopher Watkins returning from the top 4 match that we recorded with his Drampa GX Garbodor deck. He's going to be playing against Carlos Tafola, who's also playing Drampa GX Garbodor. So this is actually, I think, a mirror match that is interesting to watch. I know there's certain mirror matches in the game that are kind of painful. I like take Greninja for example. That's just a mirror match that's just not fun to watch. Just shadow stitching after shadow stitching, and it's just very tedious to watch. But I think at least in this type of matchup, it's pretty skill based and it's still interesting to watch. It's not a very tedious one. So here Carlos is going to, looks like, discard Super Odd Carbink and another card with his Professor Sycamore. Couldn't see what the other one was, but here he has a Drampa GX with a double colorless on it on the active. I think he has a Drampa and a Trubbish, and it looks like Carlos is debating putting down a second Trubbish. And okay, so it looks like he doesn't have anything else, just going to pass. Only downside to this is that he will have to leave this Drampa GX active, and it does put it slightly at risk of Chris's Drampa GX using Righteous Edge to discard the double colorless energy. So that's one thing he is going to have to be mindful of. But here looks like Chris is going to grab Tapu Lele and be able to search his deck for a supporter card. So I might imagine we'll see potentially a Pokemon fan club come down. Okay, it looks like he's going for an N. I did not see the rest of what was in his hand. So the rest might be kind of unworkable. Since otherwise I do think Pokemon Fan Club would be the way to go, since he does play that in his list. But yeah, looking at his hand, he doesn't have too much. He has a Garbodor, a couple Versus Seekers, an Escape Rope, and I think it's a Super Odd. But here he is going to play the Escape Rope. So that's going to force Carlos to promote something different, and Chris gets to switch into that Tapu Lele, and here he's just going to end. So I like that play just because, both players, or both of Chris's Pokemon that he has in play are like kind of bench sitter Pokemon, so he may as well at least switch into the one that isn't as easily knocked out as the Shaman. Okay, so let's see if Chris can manage to get himself a better hand here. His hand got a lot worse actually, I think. Yeah, that is rough. He can't even attack this turn. So here it looks like he's just going to have to settle for a Psychic Energy on Tapu Lele and pass back over to Carlos. So definitely a missed opportunity for Chris to set up his board a bit more. And here Carlos is going to play a Max Elixir to power up that Drampa. So if Carlos can actually manage to get a Pokemon with some damage on his bench and get a Choice Band, he'll be able to knock out this Tapu Lele. Okay, so he does have the Team Magma Secret Base. That's that Stadium card. Whenever a player benches a non-Team Magma Pokemon, they take 2 damage counters. So this is turning out to be pretty decent for him. He's going to grab a Level Ball to search out another Trubbish. And does he have a Float Stone? That's going to be the big card here. It looks like he's about to Ultra Ball away some stuff. Looks like he's getting rid of a Sycamore and a Verse Seeker. So Carlos does need to be careful though, because he already has, I think, 4 items in the discard. So he definitely wants to be careful, that way he doesn't fuel his opponent's Garbodors too much. But here he's going to Ultra Ball for his own Garbodor, and I guess just deciding where he wants to put it. He's going to put it on the bench one, and I think that's okay, just in case he whiffs the Float Stone this turn. He won't have one of his attackers just stranded in the active spot. But here he's going to Sycamore. Okay, does he hit the Float Stone? And a Choice Band. Okay, it looks like he's opting to bench an additional Trubbish, so he's not going to have any problems streaming his Garbodors this game, I don't think. And I did not get a good look at his hand, so he might not even have it. So it looks like he's thinking about attaching to his other Drampa. Looks like he's pretty torn here. So I guess, yeah, he can attach to the Drampa since Chris hasn't really played any items yet. But here he just has to pass, so he did not get the Floatstone and Choice Band combo. But the one thing going for him is that Chris has a pretty terrible hand here. So here he can attach to Tapu Lele, and he has Lysander, so he can pull up a Drampa GX and attack it. Okay, so he's going to Lysander up that Drampa to make sure he gets the first hit in, and Tapu Lele will actually do 100 damage. And so if Carlos is unable to knock out this Tapu Lele, Chris might actually be able to stabilize a little bit. Okay, so it's going to put him up to 100 damage since Tapu Lele's attack does 20 times the number of energy attached to both active Pokemon. Oh, and here Carlos does have the Choice Band, it looks like. So that's definitely unfortunate for Chris. He's going to bounce the Stadium, and I like that because that will prevent Chris from being able to, bench his own Pokemon to get damage on him to fuel his own Drampa's attacks. So Carlos is definitely in. It looks like a pretty solid position as of right now. Again, he just needs to be mindful of the items in his discard. But here he's going to knock out this Tapu Lele GX, taking the first knockout of the game. And Chris finally does draw a supporter, actually. So here he is going to use Field Blower and get rid of the Stadium and item card. I'm sorry, tool card attached to Drampa. He has Rescue Stretcher, so he can opt to grab a Lele. Looks like he is going to play it, so I imagine we'll see an N or a Fan Club at this point. So, looks like we're going to see an N. That way he can put Carlos at a lower hand size, since N has each player shuffle their hand into their deck and draw equal to amount of prize cards that they have left. So since Carlos just took a knockout, he will go down to a smaller hand. So hopefully for Chris, trying to limit Carlos's options and allow him to kind of stabilize and get his board finally set up here. Okay, see a Floatstone coming down. Seeing a double Carlos energy. So actually, Chris doesn't have a lot going on, but he drew enough to take a knockout and get back into this game. Only scary thing is that, well, we don't know what Carlos's hand is, but all he needs is another Choice Band and double Carlos energy, and he can actually take a return knockout on this Tapu Lele. But again, I'm not sure what his hand looks like after this end that Chris played. Okay, so it looks like he has a Psychic Energy he's debating about playing. And I can't see his hand, but I would almost consider attaching it to a Garbodor. But here he's going to Max Elixir. He is going to whiff it. So nothing there. Just because if you're not going to attach a double Carlos energy, I might like the option of putting one on a Garbodor just in case, but it just really depends on Carlos's hand, I think. So he will have a couple options here. He can do Righteous Edge to... Oh, okay, so he has a Tapu Lele. So if that's the case, I actually probably wouldn't have attached the Psychic Energy, since now you have the potential to draw into a double Carlos and potentially like a Choice Band too. So yeah, I think that might have been a small misplay on Carlos's part. Granted, like I said, he can Righteous Edge this turn nevertheless and strip this Tapu Lele of its energy. Depending on how bad his hand is after this end, he might use Big Wheel, but here we're just going to see a Righteous Edge. Does 20 damage and discards a special energy attached to your opponent's active. But luckily for Chris, he just drew another DCE. So it's really interesting. Chris hasn't had much this game, but he's had just enough to kind of keep him in the game and to survive. Okay, so it looks like he's debating playing an Ultra Ball. He also has double Carlos energy, so looks like he's really torn what he wants to go for here. Because he can attach a DCE to this Tapu Lele and attack for 80, but then all Carlos needs is one more energy and he can actually take a knockout on this Tapu Lele. So I'm not sure if that's a route he wants to go or not. I think he needs to start setting up a Garbodor though. I don't know how many items that Carlos has gone through, but it's definitely a good amount at this point. And here it looks like he's actually contemplating attaching the Shaman. Okay, so he's going to Ultra Ball, getting rid of the DC and the N. going for, looks like a Trubbish. Yep, as I expected. So if he can avoid attacking with any GXs or EXs the rest of the game, I think he's actually in a good spot to make a comeback here, just because Carlos has gone through so many items so far. Okay, so we see a Choice Band, we see a Tapu Lele. I think I saw a Lysander in hand potentially as well. So he certainly has some options here. So he's going to opt to attach a Psychic Energy to Trubbish. That seems good. Getting ready to power that thing up for once it evolves into a Garbodor. So he definitely has a couple options. Really, I think he just needs a Garbodor. He could maybe potentially even Lele for Fan Club, or maybe just Lysander his opponent's Tapu Lele and prevent Chris from being able to take a knockout. But here we're going to see a Tapu Lele hit the board, and what is he going to grab here? Okay, he is going to go for the Fan Club, so he probably sees it's important to set up multiple Trubbish here, just in case the one gets knocked out, because it's definitely the threat, the biggest threat right now on Carlos's board. But here he still has the option to get another Pokemon, so he's going to grab himself a Tapu Lele GX. So more than likely, this Tapu Lele that's in the active spot is going to go down, which will free up a bench space to play an additional Tapu Lele. Okay, so he's just going to pass. Let's see what Carlos has here. I don't think Chris has gone through many item cards yet. Not enough to take a knockout, I don't think. But here it looks like he's going to attach another Psychic Energy. And he's going to play Lysander, so definitely I think doing the right thing here, taking out the threat. And he's going to do, I think it's Berserk. I think it's Drampa's attack. I should know this by now, but it's the one that does 80 plus 70 more if any of your bench Pokemon have damage counters. So definitely taking out the Trubbish. So now it's going to force Chris to have an additional card to take a knockout here probably. So he has a Choice Band, which is good, so I'm pretty sure he's going to be able to take a knockout on this Drampa. But here it looks like he's going for a Choice Band on the Lele. So that probably tells me he has enough items in Carlos's discard pile to take a knockout either way. And here Chris is going to go for a Verse Seeker. He can grab an N. But here it looks like he's going to change his mind and go for a Sycamore instead off of this Lele. Since N would only get him 4 cards, it would be nice to put Carlos at a lower hand size, but there's just so many things I think that Chris needs this turn. I think Sycamore is the better route to go here. Okay, so he actually can make this happen. He has an Ultra Ball he can get rid of. Looks like Choice Band and potentially Sycamore. That seems good since he has a Versus Seeker for next turn anyways. He's going to grab Garbodor, and he has a Rainbow Energy in hand, so he is going to be able to take a knockout on this Garbodor. Okay, the only thing he has to watch out for is that Carlos can probably take a return knockout with his own Garbodor the next turn, just because, you know, Garbodor's weak to itself, so it doesn't require many items in the discard for Garbodors to knock each other out. And can we just marvel at Chris's bench for a second? It's literally just all bench sitters. It's all Shaymins and Leles. Kind of amusing. So that is going to be a problem too. So if this Garbodor does go down, Chris is not going to have another Garbodor powered up for the next turn. So let's see. Does Carlos have energy? That's going to be the big thing, though. Okay, he's going to go for an Ultra Ball. He's going to get rid of a Level Ball and a Magma Base, it appears. So probably going for a Shaymin if I just had to guess. And it looks like he failed it, so maybe his other Shaymin is prized. Yeah, because it looks like he's shuffling up, so that's definitely bad. That would be a really big whiff, just because if Carlos can knock out this Garbodor, I think he's actually in a good spot for the next turn, because Tapu Lele would only do 60 damage at most. But here he just had to pass, and he's going to Lysander up this Tapu Lele, taking the last 2 prizes. So yeah, definitely very unfortunate for Carlos. I think if he would have had the energy, he would have been able to seal out that game. And it's just so amusing too, because Chris had such a bad start, like, but he constantly had just enough to keep him in the game. So yeah, definitely unfortunate for Carlos, just because he did have what appeared to be a good setup. So we'll just have to see how this next game turns up. Just because it is best 2 out of 3, Carlos does have a chance to come back and still win this whole thing. So the only thing to be careful of, I think, is maybe putting so many items in the discard early on. I think that's one thing Carlos got punished a little bit for, just because he had a lot in there, and that allowed that Garbodor to take a knockout on that bench Tapu Lele. But we'll just have to see how it goes, guys. I would imagine both players probably know this matchup by now. It's two popular decks. They're probably used to playing it by now, I would imagine, but we'll just have to see how this one goes. I believe it looks like Chris has, I think it was a Tapu Lele start. I did not get to see what Carlos had. Okay, and Drampa versus Tapu Lele. So Carlos is going to get to go first, since the loser does get to decide who goes first in a best 2 out of 3 series. So here he's going to level ball, no doubt grabbing himself a Trubbish to start setting up. So definitely good so far. Does he have an energy in hand? That's one thing he probably wants next. So maybe an energy, and if he can maybe find himself a Team Magma secret base and be able to bench something, just to get something in play with some damage to fuel his Drampa's attack. That is kind of the other big order of business, I think. And oh, unfortunately, just a pass. That is not a good sign at all here. Well, I didn't see Carlos's hand, but that could also mean he has a good hand. He could potentially have Garbodor and energy and stuff to use on the following turn. Oh my god. So Chris is having to discard 3 Garbodors on turn 1. Oh man, that is rough for sure. So both players having a little bit of a rocky start right now, unfortunately. He does have a Trubbish and I believe a Drampa GX in hand as well. And a Shaman potentially for next turn. Okay, he's going to use it this turn too. So he's going to Super Rod. So okay, he's bouncing back pretty decently here. He's getting those Garbodors back into his deck. So he's starting to stabilize a little bit after what was looking to be a really bad first turn here. Alrighty, so I think he... Oh my god, how many Versus Seekers does he have in hand? It looks like 2 or 3? And he discarded 1, I think, already with Sycamore, so... Deck is definitely shuffled up, not optimally here. But here he's going to use Energy Drive, doing a 110 to this Garbodor. So he's going to be able to comfortably two-shot this thing. Looks like he's going to attach a Psychic Energy, and... Okay, so he has an Ultra Ball, so he can get rid of... Okay, so yeah, that's what I thought. He had a Garbodor in hand. Here he is going to Ultra Ball. Let's see what he decides to get, though. So maybe a Tapu Lele, potentially. Or maybe a Shaman. It's hard to say. It just depends on what he's trying to go for. I think he definitely needs a Team Magma base and an additional Pokemon to get in play. Okay, so he's going to Ultra Ball away a Garb and a Sycamore to get a Garb. That's interesting. I'm not sure what else he has in hand, but it just seems like a bit of an unusual play. So he could also potentially be purposely not getting any basics, just because he might be trying to save them for once he hits a Team Magma secret base. Okay, and here he's going to Sycamore. Okay, so that seems fine then. So here he is going to Field Blower, getting rid of this Choice Band. So that probably tells me he does not have an out to knocking out this Tapu Lele this turn. So if that's the case, you might even Righteous Edge or just retreat here. So yeah, I like the Righteous Edge play. It's going to force Chris to have a DCE in order to take a knockout. Okay, and here he's going to end. So going to refresh both players' hand. You know, if he does draw a DCE though, I've got to say Carlos will not be in a great spot just because I don't think Chris has played many item cards. So if he's forced to promote this Garbodor, it's not going to be doing too much damage just yet. But Carlos does run max elixirs in his build of this, so he could potentially still find an out to powering up another Drampa to take a return knockout. So that might be an option for him on his turn as well. But let's see. It doesn't look like Chris has the DC. So, okay, that is going to open up a window of opportunity for Carlos here to take a knockout. He has another Drampa. And what does he have in hand? It looks like he's debating attaching to it, maybe? Okay, I see a max elixir. It looks like that's what he's thinking of. Okay, it looks like he's debating on the DC, but I think that's fine, just attaching there. And here he's going to max elixir. And he does whiff it. I think he has 5 items in the discard pile, so right now his opponent's Garbodors are going to be hitting for 100. So he's still not in one-shot range, so that's definitely good for him currently. Okay, so here he is going to Sycamore. It looks like he got rid of a Kukui and an N, so that seems good. You know, getting to refresh his hand without having to play any more items. Oh, I'm sorry, he did have to discard a Rescue Stretcher, it looks like. So what does he have? I think he should get down another Trubbish if possible. I don't know if he has one, but that would be good as well. Okay, so here it looks like he's just forced to retreat just because he does not have a Pokemon on the bench with any damage counters on them. So definitely unfortunate there. A missed opportunity for both players. They kind of whiffed what they needed to take a knockout on these previous 2 turns. So let's see what Chris is going to opt to do here. He does have an escape rope in hand. He has an N. Okay, so I mean you could potentially escape rope to deny a knockout here. But it just depends. So he's thinking hard about it, it looks like. So he is going to play it. Alright, so if you're Carlos, you probably promote the Garbodor. Just because it only gives up 1 prize. And here, it looks like Chris is going to promote his Shaman. And he's going to play another escape rope. Interesting, okay. To put up Drampa. So maybe he was trying to bait Carlos into promoting the damaged Drampa on the bench. Okay, so he's getting down a second Trubbish. That seems really good. He does have a Psychic Energy, so he can actually use Righteous Edge himself to discard Carlos's DCE. And he has Choice Band, so he can actually increase his damage output if he chooses to as well. But here it looks like he's debating on playing it, but here he's just going to do Righteous Edge for 20, discard that DCE, and now Carlos is in an awkward spot because he has this Drampa stuck active. But on the plus side, if he hits a Float Stone and a double Carlos Energy, he can actually retreat into his more damaged Drampa and take a knockout on Chris's freshly powered up Drampa. But here we're going to see an N from Carlos. Definitely a little bit of a slower game. Right now, both players are kind of, tiptoeing around each other, denying each other some energy, trying to get set up a little bit. So let's see what Carlos manages to find here. So definitely another Trubbish I think would be ideal as well. Maybe that and a Ting Magma base optimally, and a Float Stone. That might be a lot to ask for, but we'll see what he ends up getting. Okay, looks like he's just checking what he's used so far. Okay, so he has a Psychic Energy, so that's not optimal, that is for sure. So here he's just going to do 20 damage. Okay, and if he has a double colorless energy, okay, so he actually does, and he has Choice Band in hand as well. I believe he did. Or on the last turn, I thought he did. Oh yeah, Carlos ended him, so he no longer does. But here's going to Field Blower, getting rid of the Choice Band on the bench Drampa, attach his own DCE, and Sycamore, getting rid of a Magma Base, just to make sure that Carlos can't use it for himself, and an Ultra Ball. And does he have Choice Band? Okay, so here I think Chris thought he had the knockout, but Drampa has 180 hit points, and he's only doing 150 currently, so it's leaving this Drampa with 10 left over. So Carlos definitely getting a little lucky there. Luckily he got rid of that Choice Band that was in Chris's hand on the previous turn. Okay, so does he have a DCE? That's the one thing he did not get last turn. Let's see if he can get that this turn, and you know, power up this Drampa to take a knockout here. Well, actually, he would need a Choice Band as well because of what happened last turn. And does he get it? That's the big thing. I think he's gone through 2 DCEs so far, so I'm not sure if he hit one or not. So he is going to level ball for a Trubbish. Okay, and both players have gone through, I think, a decent amount of items. I think Carlos has gone through more. I think I think Garbodors are taking one-hit knockouts from what I can tell. And let's see what Carlos is doing with that face-down card. It looks like he's contemplating playing that one. Okay, so he's going to attach a Psychic Energy to Garbodor. I like that. I don't really like the idea of having 3 Psychics on a Drampa. But here, he's just going to Righteous Edge again and discard Chris's DCE. Okay, so that will limit his options a little bit. But luckily for Chris, a Righteous Edge will actually just knock out this active Drampa. He doesn't even need another DCE in order to pull it off. So here he's going to Ultra Ball. Let's see what he's going to grab here. Going to grab another Garbodor. So yeah, I think he is fine. He has some options in his hand, but really I don't know what he needs. He can just Righteous Edge, take a knockout. He could throw down a DCE on something. Maybe if he had a Float Stone, he could put it on his Drampa and then attach DCE to Shaman and Sky Return. That's an option. Or he could put it on his Lele and potentially give him the option for that. But here he's going to Lysander up Garbodor and take a knockout here. Okay, so I think that's a decent play too, just because ends won't be as effective against Chris right now, and he can pretty much clean up knockouts on these Drampas with his Garbodors if his active Drampa goes down. Okay, so Carlos is going to Ultra Ball, getting rid of a Skyla and a Lysander. So potentially going for a Shaman or maybe a Lele to get a different support. I'm not sure. Okay, so he's going to go for a second Trubbish. I think he realizes he needs to kind of shift gears and start just only giving up single prizes potentially. I'm also not sure what he has in his deck too. So if he has some DCEs prized, that could also kind of force him into strictly attacking with these guys. But here he's going to Ultra Ball, it looks like. Oh no, he's going to Sycamore. Alright, so what does he hit here? It seems like Carlos has been whiffing a lot off his Sycamores this game. Hopefully he has some good stuff here. He does have a Psychic Energy. He's debating attaching. Okay, so does he have the Garbodor? Okay, so he has Ultra Ball. He can get rid of a Giratina promo and a Magma Secret Base. He does have Altar of the Moon in place. That will give 2 less retreat to any Pokemon with Dark or Psychic Energy. So that means he can retreat this Drampa for free and take a knockout here with Garbodor. Assuming Chris has enough items in the discard, but it looks like he does since it is getting discarded. So here he's going to attach a Floatstone to Shaman. And what I actually might try to do, I don't know if he has access to a Lysander, but maybe Lysandering up the Drampa that's heavily damaged and just doing a Sky Return for knockout. He does have a Verse Seeker in hand, so he could go for that. He could also potentially Verse Seeker for N and try to lower Carlos's hand size. So he's going to Ultra Ball. Looks like a Choice Band and a Hex Maniac. So he has one open bench spot. What's he going to get? Maybe a Tapu Lele for something different. I'm just not sure what he feels like he really needs. Okay, so it looks like he's actually eyeing down another Drampa. Okay, so he's going to Verse Seeker for a Sycamore and get rid of it. I like that play as well, since he probably can just close out the rest of the game with Garbodor. And he did not hit a Psychic Energy, which is bad. So here, this is a situation where I think I would have preferred that Versus Seeker for Lysander onto the Drampa GX play. But nevertheless, he's still in an okay spot. He can Sky Return and just sacrifice like a one prize attacker potentially. Okay, so he's going to attach the DCE. He has a Field Blower in hand, so he could get rid of that Altar of the Moon that's in play. Okay, so he's going to put down the Team Magma Secret Base instead. Looks like he's debating attaching a Floatstone. Let's see, I think you're safe to, just because you're going to get a Floatstone back into your hand with this Shaman, so... He's going to promote that Trubbish, probably just to force it to get knocked out. That way he can save his Tapu Lele and his Garbodors from being knocked out. And here it looks like Carlos is attaching to Drampa. I'd prefer it to the Trubbish, but I'm not sure how many Garbodors that he has gone through. But here Carlos is going to a Lysander, bringing up that Tapu Lele GX and taking a knockout. I can't see how many prizes he's at now, but I believe it's just 2 left, so he's going to have to knock out 2 Garbodors to close out this game. But let's see. Chris is going to do Field Blower, getting rid of his own Stadium, attaching a Floatstone to the active Trubbish. He has Tapu Lele and Shaman in hand, so he can dig a little deeper to grab an energy. I'm sure that's what he wants to see. So here it looks like he's checking Carlos's discard pile just to see everything he's used so far. Okay, and it looks like he's just going to end both players. So putting Carlos, I believe, down at a 2-card hand. So that can be dangerous because if this Garbodor gets knocked out and Carlos does not have another DCE to keep attacking with, that might open up a window of opportunity for Chris to finish cleaning up. And so he did get the Psychic Energy, that's good. So he can take a knockout on this Garbodor. So let's see what Carlos got off of this end to 2. And it looks like he's debating promoting the Trubbish. So that means he probably did not get anything good, but if he has to promote the Trubbish, I think he just loses because Chris can go down to 3 prizes, and then all he has to do is knock out 1 more Drampa. Oh, man. So definitely unfortunate there, I think. So the only... Okay, yeah, I think that pretty much seals up the game at this point. Just because I was going to say, if you can end Chris down to a low hand size where he does not have energy to attack with another Garbodor, that could be an out as well. I think another out he might have at this point is to potentially deck out Chris, and here his next card would have been DCE. And here he's going to take a knockout, but Chris can just promote a Garbodor here to knock out this Drampa. I really think Carlos is just 1 turn too late. I think if he would have been able to knock that thing out, he would have been able to trade a little bit more favorably. But, he still only has to take 1 more prize. And, okay, so it looks like Chris doesn't have any cards left in his deck either. So, again, maybe the Lysander stall type of play is an option. Well, no, because Chris has energy in his hand anyway, so... that is not going to be a play. Okay, and so let's see what he opts to do here. He has a Lele in his hand. I'm not sure what else he really needs. If he has a Hex, he could maybe go for a Hex to maybe try to seal the game. But here he's going to grab himself a Lysander, going for the Trubbish. And I like this because he can attack with one of his Garbodors this turn, taking a knockout on Trubbish, and no matter which Drampa comes up and knocks out his only Garbodor, he has another Garbodor ready to attack with for the following turn. But now that he has this Lele on the board, that could also potentially open him up to... Oh no, because it only has one retreat. I was thinking it had two retreat. So yeah, he can't even be Lysander stalled at this point either. And did he pass? I'm curious. So it looks like Chris passed here. That seems really odd to me. Yeah, if he did, I really don't understand that, because again, all he has to do is knock out this Trubbish, and then no matter which Garbodor Carlos promotes, his other Garbodor should be able to take a knockout on. Oh, I see. Yeah, because Carlos only had one prize left, I think. Sorry, I'm having trouble keeping up with all the prizes. It's hard for me to see on my screen. Our camera didn't get a good shot of the game here. So here he's going to go for a Tapu Lele, going for a Lysander. So maybe Carlos is going to go for that Lysander play I was just talking about. Okay, so he's going to bring up Tapu Lele GX, attach to Trubbish, and just pass. Okay, and so here, okay, yeah, I thought Carlos was at 2 prizes, but if he's at 1, then yeah, he does actually have an out to win. But here it looks like Chris is just going to pass, and he's going to Hex and pass back to Chris. And he draws a Versus Seeker, so he can, well, he can retreat, yeah. Promote a Garbodor and Lysander. Okay, so that's what he's going to go for. He's going to go for the Drampa, take a knockout on that, and then if Carlos does not have a way to respond here, then Chris wins. So Carlos's top deck is definitely going to be important here. He's going to promote the Drampa. He probably realizes, you know, I have to have it, or... Okay, so he is going to Verseeker. Okay. So, yeah, he was able to actually close out this game. Yeah, my mistake, guys. I thought he had 2 prizes there left for a second, so I was counting Carlos out a little early. So, sorry about that, Carlos. But yeah, since he only had 1 prize left, that definitely made it a lot easier for him to close out that game. Because I was just thinking, why wouldn't Chris just take the knockout, and then when Carlos promotes something else, in return knocks you out, you have another Garbodor ready to go. So, definitely my mistake there. But both players are going to shuffle up for game 3. So, definitely a good series so far. Chris, I'm sure, no doubt, will be wanting to go first. So we'll see what happens. Both players started out a little bit rough. Carlos didn't do much on his first turn, and then Chris had that horrible triple Garbodor Sycamore there. And he actually did stabilize pretty decently, but there's definitely parts on both players' parts where they both whiffed what they needed. I think Chris miscalculating the damage to take a knockout on the one Garbodor hurt him, because he had a Choice Band in hand, I believe. He could have played down before Carlos ended him, and that would have ensured the 2-hit knockout. So had that gone differently, that may have changed the game. It's hard to say, hindsight's 20/20, but I'm sure in game 3 here, neither player will make that mistake. And here Carlos has to start with his Giratina promo. Definitely a card you don't want to start with. So it's usually a card you really only want to see when you're playing against something like Greninja Break, since it turns off abilities for Break Pokemon. Pretty useless in the mirror match here. Okay, looks like Chris is going to go for a first turn Hex and pass. Ooh, That's actually pretty big because all he really needs is a 1 energy attachment on the first turn, and next turn he has an end, so he can play that then, and then hopefully get set up. Here Cars is attaching. Ooh, that is a rough Sycamore. 2 DCEs and a Choice Band right away. So at least Cars is not going to get benched out. He does have a couple of Trubbish. And it looks like just a pass on over to Chris. So here he's going to... Oh, he top decks a lot. Oh, okay. I think what happened here, guys, it went to time, and whoever took the first prize, I think at that point, was going to win. So, yeah, I was unaware this one went to time. So, definitely a little anticlimactic. I didn't expect the game to end that quickly. But, nevertheless, it was still an entertaining series, I feel like. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this Guardians Rising tournament that we were able to record. If you haven't seen Top 8 or Top 4, I'll definitely be sure to have a link somewhere in the description for you to check those out. But as usual, guys, feel free to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our merch over at rarecandytcg.com. If you can pick up something to help support the channel, it'd mean a lot to us. But with that, I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you for the next one.